All right, so we got that one out of the way, cross it off. Now I want to talk to you about what I call the jab deficit. And before I tell you what it is, I just want to preface by saying I've tried a lot of different methods throughout my career as a coach, most of them not working. Most of them not working enough to warrant making them public for people to see. I only want to show you things that have worked very well. And the jab deficit has worked so well on such a consistent basis with so many people who've been struggling to lose fat, especially having difficulty being consistent in a calorie deficit. This is a really, really good thing to try. Now, the reason I came up with the jab deficit is because I saw a lot of people, and continue to see a lot of people, really struggle with being in a deficit for 2, 3, 4 months at a time. And that's how sort of most people approach their fat loss. They go for phases of 3, 4 months or longer, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, as long as you can be consistent. But for most of us, myself included a lot of times, that's really fucking difficult. And rather than try and jam a square peg into a round hole, I came up with a jab deficit. And essentially what that is, instead of trying to do a deficit straight for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever it is, you take brief periods of time, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, in which you are in a deficit, followed immediately by maintenance phases, where you increase your calories. Not so much that you're in a surplus, but enough that you're no longer in a deficit. Because one of the main reasons why calorie deficits suck is because you're going for so long in which you have to restrict yourself. And if the time away, the distance to that end goal is further and further and further, man, it can just be draining on your motivation, your willpower. Whereas if you have, let's say for example, a 14-day or 21-day deficit, it's just a brief enough period of time in which you can be like, I can do this. I can do this 100%, or maybe I can do this 90%. And then doing that for 3 weeks, 90%, you're gonna get very quick, very rapid results. Then by the time those 3 weeks are up, you go into maintenance. You increase your calories a little bit. Now you get a mental and emotional break. You can eat a little bit more and then go back into another deficit a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. So generally my recommendation here is to go into a deficit for 1 to 3 weeks, but you have to be very clear with what your deficit length is gonna be. So if you're gonna go for 1 week, do 1 week. If you're gonna go for 3 weeks, say 3 weeks. But do what you say you're gonna do and be very clear and explicit. There cannot be any ambiguity. And then do the same exact thing with your maintenance period. If you wanna take 1 week of maintenance, take 1 week of maintenance. If you wanna take 3 weeks, take 3 weeks. If you wanna take 6 weeks, take 6. Either way, what's gonna happen here is you'll make fat loss progress, maintain. Fat loss progress, maintain. Rather than just have this long time frame without really not being sure when you're gonna have to stop or when you're gonna be able to stop, and then being inconsistent and feeling like you screwed up and then perpetually going on and off and not making any progress. This way you can be on, maintain, on, maintain. It's basically you make 1 step forward, then you pause. 1 step forward, pause. 1 step forward, pause. And it might seem, especially when you go into your first few maintenance periods, that you're losing progress, but it's so much more effective, especially if you struggle with that long-term consistency. In terms of how much of a deficit you can be in, some people, if you're doing that 1 week time frame, they'll do more of a rapid fat loss approach. And by the way, if you haven't seen my rapid fat loss video, the link is in the description. It's one of my more popular videos we've done recently, and it will give you the ins and outs emotionally, psychologically, and practically for how to do rapid fat loss. That being said, you can also do more of a sustainable fat loss approach here. Rather than getting your calories really, really low and possibly either exacerbating binge eating issues and or losing muscle, do more sustainable fat loss. If you're not sure how many calories you should eat for fat loss, link in the description to my video telling you exactly how many calories you should eat, so there's no ambiguity there. But either way, you're in complete control. You decide how quick, how rapid, or how sustainable you want to do this, and you decide for how long. And as long as you stick to this for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, you can do it very sustainably without going out of control, without losing your mind, without letting that sucky period get to be too long. And that way you can just be more consistent over the long term.